The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us. Interesting game yesterday. Another heartbreaking loss for Tennessee, but this one felt a little bit differently than the others earlier in the season. We'll see if the other guys on the panel agree with me. Tennessee loses 19-14 to Alabama. It's the 1,000th straight loss to Alabama. We'll discuss all of it coming up. This first segment brought to you by our good friends at Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. No one moves property like Phil and his team, and no one can help you find the property that's right for you like Phil and his team. Take a look at this spectacular home. That's incredible. Right there at the Battery at Berkeley Park, the price now under $750,000. Look at the size of the kitchen in that photo, and huge family room, the porches, the decks, 2 floors. It's gorgeous, just an absolutely gorgeous home. Right there in Farragut. Give a call to Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land, or check them out at philcobblehomes.com. All right, check these guys out. They're with me every week, and I always appreciate them. Bob Hodge, former volunteer Will Overstreet, Jimmy Himes, former Vol David Ligon. And for those who are going to email me, I'm sorry, VFLs, Will Overstreet and David Ligon. Whenever I say former Vol, I get emails. All right, Tennessee beat up, freshmen all over the place. Goes to Alabama. Nothing on paper says they should be able to compete in that one, really. And yet they're leading in the fourth quarter. They had a chance on their final drive to win the game. Tennessee has blown some losses, some leads this year. We all know that, and the coaching staff was criticized for it. I don't know that to me it felt as much like a blown game yesterday as it did they were punching above their class just a little bit, I thought. Your take on Tennessee's performance against Alabama, more reasons to feel bad after that loss, as people did earlier this year, or more reasons to feel good, if you can feel good after a loss? More reasons to feel bad or feel positive coming out of that one?
Go ahead.
I think there are more reasons to feel good about it. And here's one reason why. You had 2 true freshmen starting on the offensive line, but you outrushed Alabama. You also had a situation where you're playing in a hostile environment against an outstanding football team, and you led in the fourth quarter, and Tennessee hadn't led against Alabama in the fourth quarter, who knows when.
Yeah.
So that's been a long time. I just thought there were a lot of positive things that came out of it. And the defensive front, the front 4 played its best game, I think, of the year given the competition, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. That's a group that kind of finally showed up. I just thought there were more reasons to feel good about Tennessee being able to finish the season on a high note.
And I think if you look overall, this is the first time in, I want to say a decade, I know it's not, but it's the first time in a long time that Tennessee looked like they belonged on the field with Alabama. Alabama wasn't a lot bigger, they weren't a lot faster, they weren't more athletic. And so I think you kind of take this and say that, okay, Tennessee's finally back. You wish you had the win, but they look like they belonged on the same field.
Will?
I don't think there's any doubt. I think, if you really count this, and nobody likes a moral victory, but in this loss, I think it showed how far they've improved from last year and since Butch Jones has been a part of the program. This is a game that, even though you lost, and you lost to a better team, if you play this team 10 times, you're not going to be the majority of those games you're going to win. So you played a better team, you took them to the wire, you lost in one area. You lost in the special teams area. They outkicked you, they had out-returned you, and they had their field goal. They made their field goals, we didn't make ours. So overall in this game, you have to look at this as an entirety and say, I think I get more from this about how far this team has come than I do from a Georgia game that you won. So this team has improved, and I think that's a great sign. And to see a sign that the defensive line comes on, maybe that has things to come, that now this group may get back to a little bit higher form than they've been playing earlier this year.
That's why I don't bet on football. Chuck does, but I don't. If you had told me that this defensive line, now you take Shai Tuttle out of the group, all of a sudden they're going to play their best game against an Alabama on the road against
the best offensive line they played against.
I would not have seen it coming. Every week, it's a cliche, but every week really is its own season. There's no question. All right, David, everybody's taking kind of positives from this.
Sure.
Your thoughts?
I think if you're feeling bad, it has to do with this is the 9th time we've lost Alabama in a row. That hurts. It stings. It doesn't matter whether you played them close or not. And I think that's what makes you feel bad, but that's okay. You're supposed to feel bad about that. But it was encouraging to see, not just one or two positions on the field. There was all over the place. We had players that were able to compete against the players of Alabama. That's been the elite program over the last number of years in college football. And I think it boils down to depth. And we just don't have that depth right now to be able to compete. We got a small amount of players that are on the upper end, the fifth-year seniors, the seniors. That'll change over the coming years, and that's where you hope that that depth is there with the elite level of player, and you start getting these wins.
Well, and I think we've got some numbers here that I think speak to that. People are tired of hearing the young thing. We've got a graphic here, forever young. They are. It's Neverland. It's Peter Pan. You see there Tennessee and Alabama. Tennessee with 3 freshmen. Alabama had 4, but sophomores 8-2. Once again, this is the 6th time in 6 games against FBS foes that the opponent has started more upperclassmen than Tennessee has. Tennessee continues to start more underclassmen than their opponents. They started 11 yesterday, and you look at Alabama only started 6. We showed a graphic last week. Here are the other 5 games, if we can go on to this. Same graphic as last week. You see the same thing. Tennessee with more underclassmen starters in every single game, including against Florida. They had those 3 freshman offensive linemen that played together on stretches, but they didn't start them and they didn't play the entire game. You look at the next, that's just to kind of reinforce there. You add up the numbers with Alabama yesterday. Here you are again. Underclassmen starts on the year. There's 132. You get 22 starts a game, obviously. Tennessee has had 67 underclassmen get starts, 50%. Their foes have had 30% underclassmen. So you look at that and you see that you are younger than any of these teams you're playing down to the wire. And then let's look at star power yesterday. Alabama's been recruiting top 5 classes for about 8 years now. 8 5-star guys started for Bama yesterday, 2 for Tennessee. 6 4-stars for Tennessee, 8 for Alabama. Look at the 3 stars, 14 for Tennessee, 6 for Alabama. I think you look at those numbers, you can make an awfully good case that Tennessee's coaching staff milked more out of their roster yesterday than Nick Saban and his staff did out of their roster. And I think part of that was Alabama was worn down. They hadn't had an open date. But still, you look at the youth, you look at the star power, the depth that David talked about. Nobody likes to lose, but I thought yesterday was the best step forward we've seen this year.
I think you can talk about the team taking a step forward as far as the players, but I also think the coaches have taken a step forward. This didn't feel like Florida and Oklahoma to me. I think this had a little bit of a different feel, and I think you're right. Tennessee's coaches got about what they could get out of this group of guys. Where else could they have gone?
Let's talk about the final drive, all right? They start with a run play. A lot of people had an issue with that. I myself thought, okay, I understand trying to run it someplace. I don't know that I would have started with first down and a run, but Bob, you and I spoke. You had a feeling about why they did that there.
Well, I think what it was Alabama, the run game in the final drive was probably out the window. So why not take what amounts to a shot early and see if you can surprise them a little bit, get 10, 15 yards, and sort of put them on their heels. And I think conversely, the fact that the run game was gone is the reason that all of a sudden Alabama's pass rush looked so much better in that final drive too. All you had to do was rush the passer.
And your last run play you scored a touchdown on was a pretty good run
Yes.
play. So you had success. So now you come right back and say, can we get 12 yards? Can we get 15 yards right off the bat?
And Hurd had a 25-yard run at the end of the first half, too, where it was just popped it up the middle on a 3rd and long. Right. Your thoughts on the final drive? Problems, issues?
Yeah, you had a lot of time. You had 2 timeouts. Yeah, mix it up. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to run the football in that situation, particularly when you have had success. I think at the end of the second half, I think we were just going to kind of run the clock out until we pop that run off, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity to get points on the board. It wasn't jumping off the page to me as much as it has been in the past. So, I think you recognize that you had to have some big explosive plays to be able to move down the field. I don't know, the way Alabama's defense kind of, hey, if we stop it, we win. They kind of stepped up. They had a little bit more energy. You knew you had to have some type of explosive play to be able to be successful. So that's why I think they're trying to throw the ball around.
Jimmy, your thoughts on the final drive?
And the pass protection just broke down after that. Tennessee did manage to get a first down, but the pass protection on the right side wasn't able to hold up. I don't know if you try to put a tight end over there to help, or you chip, or you do something to try to helped the true freshman on that side, but that's where Alabama just ran through them, and Dobbs didn't have any time to throw it. And I think that particular series is where you saw Tennessee's youth show up a lot on the offensive line.
Yeah. Well, you had a sophomore center that kind of got pushed back on the first sack, and then you had a true freshman right tackle that got smoked on the other one. So, yeah, the youth showed up against some men that were playing for Alabama. But when we come back, which set of coaches did a better job? I didn't expect the O-line or the D-line to play as well as they did. Which set did better with those guys? And then also the kicking game. What does Butch Jones need to do about the place kicking role? Come on back on the Sports Source.